I didn't cry when I read the email. I didn't throw my phone across the room or slam my laptop shut. I just sat there in the break room staring at the screen, while the coffee I'd poured 3 minutes ago went cold beside me. The subject line was, "Regarding your position at Whitmore & Associates." My manager had sent it at 9:47 on a Tuesday morning. I'd been working at that firm for 6 years. Let me back up. My name is Alara. I'm 31 years old, and for 6 years I was a senior financial analyst at Whitmore & Associates, a mid-sized investment consulting firm in downtown Chicago. I was good at my job. Not good for someone my age. Good, actually good. I built 3 of the firm's most profitable client models from scratch. I worked late when nobody asked me to. I came in on a Saturday in January because a client's quarterly report had an error that wasn't even my error, and I fixed it anyway. I did all of that because I believed the work mattered, and honestly, because I believed I mattered to them. His name was Colton, my manager's son, 26 years old, fresh out of a second-tier MBA program, and hired directly into a senior associate role that 3 people on my team, including me, had applied for internally. Nobody said anything out loud. You don't say anything out loud at a place like Whitmore. You just nod and send the welcome email and learn to work around the person who got the job because of whose last name he shares. Colton wasn't incompetent in an obvious way. That would have been easier. He was incompetent in the slow, quiet way that's almost worse, the kind where he'd take your slide deck, present it in a meeting, and let the room assume it was his. He'd ask you a question privately, take 3 notes, and then an hour later you'd hear him explain your own answer to a senior partner like he thought of it himself. I documented everything. Not because I was planning anything. I just knew somewhere in the back of my mind that documentation is the only language that gets heard when everything else fails. My manager, Colton's father, was a man named Mr. Whitmore, not the original Whitmore. His uncle had founded the firm. He'd inherited the title and the corner office and the habit of making decisions based on loyalty over competence. He wasn't a bad person exactly. He was just the kind of person who had never once been told no by anyone who could afford to say it. For 6 years, I told myself the situation was manageable, that I was building towards something, that the right people were watching, and eventually the right door would open. The door opened, just not the one I expected. 8 months ago, I got engaged. His name is Marcus. Wait, no, that name's taken. His name is Joel Tanner. He proposed on a Thursday night in our apartment kitchen, no restaurant, no crowd, just him and a rink he'd saved for and a question he asked while I was still in my work clothes. I said yes before he finished the sentence. Joel works in commercial real estate, has for about 9 years. Quietly, steadily, the way he does everything. He doesn't talk about his work much at dinner. I used to tease him about it, said it was like being married to a monk who happened to wear blazers. We set the wedding date for late October. Small ceremony, 200 people, a venue outside the city with oak trees and good light. My mom cried when she saw the deposit receipt. My sister said it was the fanciest thing anyone in our family had ever done. I laughed and told her that wasn't a high bar. I took the Friday before the wedding off. I'd arranged everything weeks in advance, coverage for my accounts, hand-off notes, a 1-paragraph email to Mr. Whitmore CCing the relevant partners. Clean, professional, nothing that could be called last minute. The rehearsal dinner was Thursday evening. It was perfect. Joel's parents drove in from Columbus. My mum and my aunt got into a mild debate about centerpieces that resolved itself in 15 minutes. We ate pasta toasted with Prosecco and drove home at 10:30 with the particular lightness of people who have made a decision and are not second-guessing it. I set my phone to Do Not Disturb before bed. I'd check messages in the morning. The morning of my wedding, I woke up at 6:45. The light was already good. I lay there for a minute just looking at it, thinking, this is the last morning I'll wake up as a single person, and that is completely fine with me. I made coffee. I opened my phone. There were 43 emails, 9 missed calls, and 1 text from a number I didn't recognize. The text said, "Miss Elara, please review the email from Mr. Whitmore at your earliest convenience." I opened the email. "Dear Elara, after a thorough review of team performance and company direction, we have determined that your role will be eliminated effective immediately. Please return your access credentials and any company property to HR by end of business Friday." A severance package reflecting your tenure will be processed in accordance with company policy. We wish you well in your future endeavours. Ah, Whitmore, I read it twice. The coffee was still warm in my hand. I didn't cry. I didn't panic. I set the mug down on the counter very carefully, the way you set something down when your hands aren't entirely reliable, and I stood there in my kitchen in my pyjamas on the morning of my wedding, and I thought they did this on purpose, not the elimination. I mean, maybe the role was being restructured. Maybe. But the timing. They'd sent this at 11:40 the previous night with a Friday deadline on the morning of my wedding. They had my PTO request on file. They knew exactly what day this was. I forwarded the email to my personal account, then I screenshotted it, then I opened my documentation folder, the one I'd been building for 2 years, and I sent the whole thing to my personal drive. Then I went and got my hair done. My maid of honor was my college roommate, Becca. She is the kind of person who, when something goes wrong, immediately starts problem-solving in a voice so calm it's almost funny. I told her in the car on the way to the salon. She listened without interrupting. Then she said, "Okay, what do you need from me today?" "Nothing," I said. "I just needed to say it out loud." "Good. Then we table it. You deal with it Monday." "Monday," she said. "Today you get married." The ceremony was at 2 in the afternoon. The oak trees had turned just enough to be beautiful without being distracting. My dad walked me down the aisle and I could tell he was working very hard not to cry, which made me work very hard not to cry. And we both managed it. Joe was standing at the end in a suit I'd helped him pick out in August, and when he saw me his face did something that I don't have a good word for. Something very open and very certain. We said our vows. We signed the license. The photographer got the shot of us laughing under the oak trees that I still have framed in our hallway. The reception was in the attached hall. Cocktail hour, dinner, dancing, the whole thing. Joel's brother gave a toast that was genuinely funny. My mum cried again, justified this time. By 8 o'clock the dance floor was full, and I had a glass of champagne in my hand, and I thought, for 1 clean hour, I am not going to think about the email. Then my phone buzzed. The caller ID said, "Colton Whitmore." I looked at it. I handed my champagne to Becca. I walked the hallway outside the reception hall, the one with the coat rack and the framed botanical prints, and I answered, "Elara." His voice had that particular quality it always had in meetings, just slightly too confident for the room. I wanted to reach out personally about the transition. "It's my wedding reception," I said. I know, and I apologize for the timing, but there are some files on the shared drive that we need access to, and HR flagged your credentials as still active and Colton, and it would really help us out if you could just send the passwords to Colton." I kept my voice level. "You terminated me by email at midnight on the morning of my wedding. Whatever you need from the shared drive can wait until Monday, or you can contact HR." A pause. "The thing is," he said, "my dad thought it would be better coming from me, since we have a working relationship." I almost laughed. "We don't have a working relationship anymore," I said. "You saw to that. Don't call this number again." I hung up. I stood in the hallway for a moment, next to the botanical prints, breathing. Then I went back to the reception and danced with my husband. I told Joel everything that night in the hotel room after the reception. We were still in our wedding clothes, shoes off, sitting on the edge of the bed. He listened the way he always listens, completely still, face neutral, no interrupting. When I finished, he was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Show me the email." I showed him. He read it. Then he read it again. "Okay," he said. "Okay," I said. "I need to make a call Monday morning." He set the phone down on the nightstand. "Don't do anything yet. Don't respond. Don't contact HR." "Joel, what are you?" "Trust me," he said. "Can you give me until Monday?" I had just married this man 4 hours ago. I said yes. Monday came. I didn't go to the office. I stayed home and answered emails from my personal account and tried not to check my phone every 8 minutes. At 11:15, Joel texted me from a meeting. "It's handled. Call coming at 2. At 2 o'clock precisely, my phone rang. Chicago area code, number I didn't recognize. Ms. Mees. "Elara?" A woman's voice, professional and hurried. My name is Diane. I'm the General Counsel for Meridian Capital Group. I'm reaching out on behalf of Joel Tanner regarding the matter at Whitmore and Associates. I sat down. Mr. Baran, Tanner has shared the documentation of your situation with our legal team. We've reviewed the termination notice and the employment records you provided, and we believe there is a clear case for wrongful termination and, potentially, retaliation given the documented pattern by a senior employee. Who is Joel to Meridian Capital? I asked. A pause. Not uncomfortable. More like the pause before a very clear sentence. Mr. Tanner is a principal investor and sits on the advisory board of Meridian Capital Group, which, as of last quarter, holds a 22% stake in Whitmore and Associates parent company. I held the phone against my ear and looked out the window at the street below and said nothing. Mr. Parker, Tanner has requested that we conduct a formal review of governance practices at Whitmore. Diane continued. That review will begin this week. He has also authorized us to pursue your wrongful termination claim on your behalf at no cost to you, should you wish to proceed. I thought about the email sent at midnight on my wedding day. I thought about 6 years of slide decks and Saturday mornings, and documented meetings, and a folder on my personal drive that was now 312 pages long. I wish to proceed, I said. What happened over the next 8 weeks was not dramatic in the way movies make things dramatic. It was mostly emails and conference calls and signed documents. But the outcome was this. Colton Whitmore resigned from his position following the governance review, which surfaced 3 separate instances of misappropriated work product and 1 instance of an expense account irregularity that the firm's own auditors had flagged and quietly buried. Mr. Whitmore, Colton's father, retained his title but lost his operational authority. The board installed an independent managing director. The man had to sit through 2 weeks of leadership alignment sessions, which anyone who has worked in a corporate environment knows is not a good time. I received a settlement. The specific amount is under NDA, but it covered the remainder of my salary through the end of the fiscal year, plus damages, plus the firm's legal fees. HR sent a letter formally rescinding the termination. Not that I was going back. I also received, 3 weeks after all of this concluded, an unexpected email. It was from a senior partner at a competing firm, someone who had apparently been on a quarterly call where my name had come up in connection with one of the client models I'd built. She asked if I'd be open to a conversation. I was open to a conversation. I started the new job in January, Director of Financial Strategy, my own team, a salary that made my eyes go briefly wide when I read the offer letter. I called my mom and she cried, which is becoming a pattern. The last thing I want to say is this. There was a moment, early in the governance review, when my attorney forwarded me an email chain that had originated from Colton's account. In it, he had written to one of the junior analysts, a guy named Tom who had always been decent to me, "Don't worry, she'll be too distracted to fight back. People like her don't know how to play the long game." I read that sentence more than once. I think about it sometimes when I'm sitting in my new office on the 14th floor, looking at a client model I built from scratch for the 3rd time in my career, except this time my name is on it. I know how to play the long game, I just don't always announce that I'm playing. Joel still doesn't talk much about work at dinner. I've stopped teasing him about it. Some things you understand better once you've seen him from the inside. We went to Portugal for our honeymoon. 2 weeks, late November. Just the 2 of us and a rented car and roads that went along the coast. On the last night, we sat at a small restaurant in Sintra, sharing a bottle of local wine, watching the light go gold over the hills. He reached across the table and put his hand over mine. "You okay?" he said. I thought about the email. The midnight timestamp, the break room coffee going cold, the 6 years. "Yeah," I said, "I actually am." The bill came. He paid it. We walked back to the hotel under a sky full of stars, had no opinion whatsoever about Whitmore and Associates, and that felt in its own quiet way like the best kind of justice. I've thought a lot about what Colton actually believed when he wrote that email. Not the words of it, the logic behind it. He thought that timing was leverage, that catching someone on the most emotionally loaded morning of their life would make them smaller, more compliant, easier to dismiss. He thought the overwhelm would do the work for him. What he didn't understand is that people who have been underestimated for a long time get very good at one thing: not showing their hand. I didn't document 6 years of meetings and misappropriated work because I was planning revenge. I did it because I believed, even when the evidence was thin, that the truth has weight. That if you keep an honest record of what actually happened, it doesn't disappear just because someone with a better last name decides it's inconvenient. I wasn't playing a long game. I was just refusing to let the story get rewritten without my version in the room. And here's the thing about what Colton did. The midnight email, the Friday deadline, the call to my reception asking for passwords, none of it was smart. It felt powerful to him because power had always come easily. He'd never had to earn access to a room. He just walked through doors his father opened. So he didn't know what it looked like when someone had been quietly building something for years. He couldn't recognize it. It didn't look like anything he'd seen before. Joel doesn't talk much. I used to think that was just his personality. I understand now that it's also a choice. There's a kind of intelligence that announces itself constantly, and there's another kind that simply acts when the moment is right. I married the second kind without fully knowing it, and I am not complaining. But I also want to be honest about something. Joel's phone call mattered, and the outcome mattered, and the settlement mattered. And at the same time, the 312 pages in that documentation folder mattered first. Without that, there was nothing to act on. The call Joel made was only possible because I'd spent 2 years writing things down when it would have been easier to let them go. That's the part I think about most. Not the ending, but the Tuesday mornings when I typed up another meeting summary that I wasn't sure anyone would ever read. The Saturday I came in to fix someone else's error. The way I kept doing the work had the same standard even when the standard wasn't being applied to everyone equally. None of that felt like strength at the time. It just felt like what you do when you care about doing something well. Colton wrote that I wouldn't fight back. He was right that I didn't fight the way he expected. I didn't get loud. I didn't send an angry reply at midnight. I went and got my hair done, and I married my husband, and I danced at my own reception, and I called an attorney on Monday. That's not patience as a virtue. That's just knowing where your actual leverage is. The lesson, if there is one, isn't that good things come to good people. The world is too complicated for that to be reliably true. The lesson is that how you conduct yourself over time becomes the evidence. Your ethics aren't separate from your strategy. They are your strategy. And the people who skip that step, who take shortcuts through other people's work, who use timing as a weapon, who mistake inherited access for earned authority, they tend to leave a paper trail of their own. They just don't think anyone's paying attention. Someone is always paying attention. I'm sitting in my new office right now, 14th floor. My name is on the door and on the models and on the emails I send to clients who chose to work with me specifically. It took 6 years and one very bad morning to get here. I'd do it the same way again.